Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Class 700 in Train Simulator. This is obviously a different scenario to the one I've just done, if you haven't seen that video yet. This time, instead of being on the South London network, we're technically on Chatham Mainline. This is, I should add that this is not the recent extended version of the CML that Dovetail brought out, and as such, in this time we'll just be starting at Denmark Hill instead of Blackfriars. I don't have the extended Chatham Mainline route yet. Anyway, so yeah, this is a scenario that I've made myself, as was the case with the previous video. And this time we'll be we've taken over a service from Blackfriars at Denmark Hill, and we'll be taking this lot down to Swanley, even though in real life it would continue on to Sevenoaks. And since this is we start in South London territory essentially, we have ourselves a 378. And I'm just going to try and get a screenshot of this thing while I still can. I don't know why it's got that 5-car label on the front, because I'm pretty sure in real life the 378s don't have that sticker anymore. Even though I think now they're pretty much all 5-car units. Even the stroke ones. That's right, they need to put the master key on for the 700, otherwise the throttle won't work. Although here's a thought, in real life would you still be able to move the reverser even if the master key was off? Speaking of master key, I think I was watching a Train Sim TV video earlier this morning, and I think he was saying that the 700 model was done by master key simulation. Which is curious to me, because I remember that NKS also did the model for the class, or for the newer class 444 and 450 models that you get with the extended version of the Portsmouth Direct line. There's the destination display. And if you do want to know my initial thoughts on the Class 700 DLC that Dovetail have just made, you can check out the previous video, because I don't fancy risking sounding like a broken record this time around. Anyway, as we leave Denmark Hill, we've obviously got the this interesting 4-track section, and it looks like we're about to overtake that 378. And of course the next stop is Peckham Rye. And whenever I see the word Peckham, it reminds me of the classic English comedy program Only Fools and Horses. Sounds like that 378 has still got the Armstrong Powerhouse sound pack working on it. Of course, the 700, on the other hand, does not yet have an Armstrong Powerhouse sound or enhancement pack. That's assuming AP will ever make one. Although I dare say that if they do, they'll do a damn sight better job on the sounds than what Dovetail managed to do. Actually, that's the point. Maybe get your tinfoil hats out, lads. Maybe Dovetail, like, purposely, or made the 700 bad on purpose, because they might have, for all we know, they would have known that AP might come out and do an enhancement pack. And what's that noise? Oh, it's another 378. With another one with the strange 5-car label. I know that in real life the 378s did have these labels, but that was quite a few years ago now. Funny thing is, I remember the 378s when they first came along in 2009. That's strange. Why did the sound cut out then? No, but I remember when the 378s first appeared in 2009, they were only 3-car units. But they've since been extended to 4 and now 5 cars. Although I think they actually had to be shortened back to 4-car sets to run on the Gospel Oak to Barking line. This throttle on the 700 is interesting. It's like semi-smooth, I guess, because it's notched, but looks like you can only, well, the notches are like 5% increments. And also, if anyone who's more knowledgeable in 700s is watching, do they actually sound Like, do they actually sound anything like 450s in real life? 'Cause I know that these motor sounds are reused from the Class 450. And come to think of it, I have a feeling, I like to think that if Dovetail were to bring the 700 to TSW, that they would either seriously up their game with the sounds, or ask Armstrong Powerhouse to do the sounds for them. If anything, I think that's what they did for the Class 314 that came with the Cathcart Circle routes, and in that case it worked out quite well, because the 314 is actually one of my favourite UK EMUs to drive in TSW, and by extension its dual voltage counterpart, the 313. Even though the 313s that are depicted in TSW are actually the refurbished southern units and not the original dual voltage ones, or rather not as the 313s were in their original dual voltage condition. Anyway, this station is Nunhead, and I've got no idea how it got that name, although it does remind me of how for whatever reason nuns were often brought up in Dad's army for some reason, and I'm not really sure what the connection is between British volunteer army units and nuns. It also reminds me of Father Ted. And yes, despite being relatively young, I actually generally prefer watching these older comedy programs rather than newer ones. Hang about, let's just look at that ticket machine I just noticed. Oh Christ, this lag is going to be the death of me. It's that annoying. Now to me this looks like I think a Southeastern ticket machine, although it's not very well modelled because all the details here are just like a plain 2D texture. And this bit here looks like a vanilla Oyster card in a way. And I can't imagine these destination displays would be even slightly accurate. And also, before I forget to mention, watch how unrealistically quickly the doors close in this game. I've never seen a 700 in real life, but I'm pretty sure the doors wouldn't open and shut anywhere near as fast as that. Anyway, the next stop is Crofton Park. I just heard someone open my front door. Which I can't imagine, there's no way it'd be a thuggy. It'll just be Mum coming back from work, I think. Anyway, Nunhead Station, if I'm not mistaken, is also served by Southeastern trains that go down towards Lewisham and eventually Dartford. And this junction that we're coming through now, we're curving off to the right, but the Southeastern trains go off that way. I don't know what that building there is, but to me it looks like an old pump house. I remember that on the old South London network, only a very small part of the Catford Loop was actually modelled, and you could only go as far as Crofton Park. But obviously with this newer Chatham Mainline route that Dovetail brought out in about 2016, they did add the Catford Loop, so you can go down through Catford itself and then on past like Beckenham Hill and Ravensbourne, and then you join the main line at Shortlands. And of course there's Bromley South. And speaking of Bromley, I wouldn't mind seeing the branch line from Grove Park to Bromley North in the game, even though that might seem like a wasted effort because of how short the line is. But it would mean that for someone who wanted to drive like third rail EMUs but didn't want to go through the hassle of having to put in an awful lot of AI trains to represent a busy scene in London, they could just do the Bromley North shuttle and just run back and forth up and down that branch line several times over. Pretty sure in real life they still use the Class 466s on the Bromley North shuttle, because I can't imagine passenger numbers on that branch would be high enough to warrant the use of longer trains. Although saying that, I'm pretty sure the 466s used to run the Sheerness branch until a few years ago when when 3-car Class 375s took over. And I think that was because the 466s were not DDA compliant. I think DDA is the right abbreviation to do with disabled access regulations. Just curious, the doors in the front coach aren't opening. Actually, come to think of it, I remember in real life that pretty sure the Class 700s actually have selective door opening for certain stations. It's kind of like the London Underground 1995 stock. Something else that I just realised I completely forgot to mention in the last video, although it might not necessarily be important, is that you look at this, right? It's this is an 8-car train, but it's all one unit, and it's not like a pair of 4-car units coupled together. And that's quite a fascinating aspect of the 700s, or one aspect of the 700s that I've always found quite fascinating, because they have 8-car variants like what we're seeing here on the Catford Loop, and then there's also the 12-car version. And also there's just noticed that bug again. The AI doesn't have headlights on for some reason. Like, Dovetail, how did you not notice an issue as simple, the bug as simple as that? Or did you even test the 700? Wait. So if the AI has got the tail lights working, then why does it not have working headlights? Like, how did that end up, or how did that skip any testing, or what little testing you probably did, and end up in the final product? Right, next stop is Catford, which is a curious sort because there's Catford and Catford Bridge, which are two completely separate stations, but I think they're right across the road from each other. Obviously, Catford is served by Thameslink, and Catford Bridge is served by Southeastern. In fact, I think these Southeastern trains that stop at Catford Bridge, I think they would either be 465s or these somewhat obscure 376s. And I just realised we're probably going too fast. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's constantly lagging, but it's not usually this bad. You know, I seem to recall there was constant lag that time I was driving the Lumo Class 803 from Newcastle to Darlington. And if I remember to do so, I'll put a link to that video in the top right corner. You know, up here. Now, I don't know how accurate the physics are on this thing, but they seem to be. Well, I wouldn't call them unrealistic. I mean, not like the... what's an example I can think of a train with hideously unrealistic physics? Well, I suppose the Class 150/1 that Dovetail made a few years ago, that thing was so bad it was undrivable in its default state, and then Armstrong Powerhouse came along with an enhancement pack that actually made the 150/1 drivable. And it's not often I come across Dovetail products that are so bad right out of the gate that they're just undrivable. And speaking of which, I can certainly understand why some people might not want to get the 700 unless a sound mod or something comes out for it. But as it stands now, I honestly don't mind this train, and I do, and of course I respect the opinions of those who don't like it, even though I respect those opinions, but I respectfully disagree. Oh, well, what am I saying? No, what I'm saying is, whilst I certainly understand why people might not like this thing, because I realise just how bad the sounds are, I have already worked out that this thing does, at the very least, still have a use as AI traffic and scenarios, even though, as we saw earlier, for some reason the headlights on the AI train doesn't work. Also, this horn is a little bit slow, this horn sound effect is a little bit slow to respond. Now, I'm pretty sure that specific horn sound is not from the original Portsmouth Direct line, but rather from the 450 that came with the extended route to Waterloo. I remember that with the original 450 from like 11 or 12 years ago, if you press the spacebar on that thing and it'll just play a short recording of a two-tone horn regardless of whether or not you press the B key. I mean, if you press the B key on that original 450, it'll do nothing. And I just heard my bloody dog barking. Wonderful. Anyway, this is Bellingham. Yet another station I know nothing about. To me, this just seems nothing more than a very basic South London commuter station. And my God, anyone would think that with streets this dead and empty, anyone would think that in an instant, all the people around and almost all the vehicles had suddenly disappeared without a trace. And yet the vehicles we do have here just don't look right. This is a very strange rendition of what I think is a Ford Focus, if ever I saw one. It doesn't fit very well with the pretty decent quality modelling for the 700. Anyway, that's one thing I don't like, is that horrible glare when you have the headlights on. Like, surely they're not that bright in real life. Anyway, next stop is Beckenham Hill. Now these sidings are curious because I don't know if anything's ever actually stored there in real life. Something I forgot to point out on the previous video is that, as is usually the case, I've noticed with some of Dovetail's modern trains that they've done, is that they've modelled the GSMR radio equipment here, and yet it never works. And the same goes for all of the modern UK trains that they've brought into TSW. And I remember that there's some Armstrong Powerhouse products, I think like the Class 150/2, that do have working GSMR. So if Armstrong Powerhouse have worked out how to pull it off, I can't understand why Dovetail haven't either. Or do they just not care? Now, considering how poor my knowledge on London's geography is, I don't really know. I don't know how close to or far away from Beckenham Junction that this station is. Although, speaking of Beckenham Junction, I'm pretty sure that station isn't served. Wait, no, Beckenham Junction, that is served by Southeastern, unlike their stopping services from London Victoria to Orpington. And I think it's also the terminus of the southern service from London Bridge, as well as a branch of the Croydon Tramlink. One thing's for sure is that I'm fairly certain the 700s don't go to Beckenham Junction in real life. Now here's something else that I've just remembered that might be worth mentioning. Considering that that Dovetail were able to do an opening cab side door with the or when they did the class, or the London Overground Class 172 all those years ago. Why have they not bothered to do the same for the 700? Like, why is there so much inconsistency in terms of like in terms of like whether or not trains have certain features? Anyway, yes, this Chatham Mainline is not really a route that I'd like to drive on too much, because I just think the scenery and just the overall detail is just so boring for the most part. Like, I'm not saying if anything, it probably is accurate to real life, but even so, it still just looks rather boring. In which case, I sort of feel sympathetic for anyone who lives around these parts and has to go through the process of getting on, like taking Thameslink to and from work every day. Because along this line, it's just a very basic half-hourly service, and I realise we're coming into this platform way too fast. And even with the emergency and all handbrakes on, I'd be wow. Didn't think the train would stop this quickly. I thought, considering how fast we were going, that we'd overshoot the platform by at least one coach. Yes, I'm pretty sure they don't run the 12-car 700s on the Catford Loop in real life, simply due to the restrictive length of the platforms. This Ravensbourne, aside from the curved platform, kind of reminds me of Swanscombe on the North Kent line. There's a pantograph. That's the other thing. The 700s, I think Farringdon is where on the Thameslink core is where they switch from third rail to overhead wires and vice versa. Right, next stop from Ravensbourne is Shortlands, and as that signal indicates, it will be diverging onto a different track. Because I think if we continued on this line without going on this particular track without going through these points, we would end up on the fast lines, which wouldn't be good, because there's a Southeastern service that's on its way down from London Victoria, and that'll overtake us at some point. But if we ended up on the fast lines, we'd have a nasty head-to-tail collision. Here's another one of those pump houses. If anything, that actually looks like the same asset that we saw at Nunhead. Lazy route building, or is it just coincidentally, or do they just coincidentally have the same pump house design in real life? I have no idea. Although, given Dovetail's appalling reputation, it probably is just lazy route building. Looks like we've overshot this one. Perhaps unsurprisingly. Yeah, I swear the 700 doesn't... I swear the motors in the real... I swear the motors on the real 700s don't sound like this in real life. I might have, if I remember, once I've got this train to Swanley, I might actually go and look up some footage of the real 700s. Well, consider... Here's me essentially complaining about words to the effect of poor detailing, and yet they've gone and modelled this, what looks like prison bars in here, although I've no idea what this would be in real life. But what I don't get is, like, these prison bars, as I'll call them, you can see them on this side, and you go on the other side, and it's as if they were never there. It's almost like one-way glass. And I'm pretty sure these 700s would not be silent in real life. Although, come to think of it, why does it seem like you're only getting these idle sounds from the front coach instead of all these others down? Or why is it that you'd only be getting these extra sounds from the driving cars than the rest of the train. Like, surely that's not realistic. So I don't know too much about the 700s, but I'm pretty sure the motor cars are actually spread throughout the consist instead of just being at each end. And as always, we're getting this excessive and completely unnecessary lag, and don't really know what to do to fix it without breaking the bank and getting a new computer that actually can run these games smoothly. Right, the next stop is Bromley South, which is actually quite a major station because not only does it get served by the Southeastern stopping services and Thameslink ones to and from Sevenoaks, but the Southeastern trains that go fast down the Chatham Mainline also stop here. Although in my opinion it's a bit of an ugly station. Once again we're coming into the platform quite fast. Oh, and all the time I just realised it's a 1 in 100. Excuse me. Yeah, I just realised that it's a 1 in 100 gradient along here, which I didn't realise until all the years I've had this route. I never realised that it was 1 in 100 until today. Trying to stop in the right place here, and I think we've got that. Oh, sort of. Just missed it. Never mind. Anyway, here's another 700, and I think this lot is going back towards Blackfriars. Yes, I think I will have to disable that mouse click sound effect. Because I wouldn't have thought I'd hear it, or I would have thought it would only show up on the recording and not during the actual recording process. Come to think, I just remember that some people have said that there's words to the effect of there should be like more cables in between the coaches than just these. Because as it stands now, that does look quite plain and overly simplistic. But of course, the thing with the 700s is that that would explain there's no way it would be that dark in real life. There's obviously something seriously wrong there. What does that say? Thank you for travelling us today with blah blah blah. It's just generic wibble. Yes, I think whilst I don't mind don't really mind this Class 700 by Dovetail Games, I do think that there is a lot of room for improvement. For starters, you could set it up so the AI train doesn't shoot off like a rocket, because that just looks ridiculous. If anything, to me it just looks like they're doing a full throttle start, which surely there's no way that real drivers would do full throttle starts, because that would be such a huge jolt for the passengers that they could potentially lose their lunch. Right, so as I said earlier, we'll be ending this run at Swanley, but I think we've got another 2 stations to go before we get there, which are Bickley and St Mary Cray. And I think somewhere between here and Swanley we'll get overtaken by that Southeastern service that's heading down to Dover. And something I've just realised I completely forgot to mention in the previous video, and I've forgotten until now, is that the 2 scenarios that I've made for each of these videos, they will be going up on Steam and Workshop, so you can I'll put a link to them in the description so you can go and look at them and possibly download them and have and run and play them yourself. At the time of uploading, I haven't seen anyone else publishing scenarios with the Class 700. I'm not sure how many I'll do besides, or well, past in addition to these two. I do plan to do one on the Midland Mainline, London to Bedford route, where you take, which will probably just be a shorter or a short form St Albans to St Pancras run. And then the second, if I do a second one on that route, it could be, it'll probably just be like St Pancras all the way to Bedford. And this timetable's a bit tighter than I remember. Or rather, well, I'll rephrase that. This timetable is a bit tighter than I thought it would be. Yeah, there's no way the headlights on a train would be this bright in real life. I mean, this would probably be enough to blind someone. I remember with Armstrong Powerhouse and some of their enhancement packs, like especially the 170 Turbo Stars, those things are set up where the lights, when the lights will only have that bright glow down the track when they're at night, when it's at night. Yeah, I just can't really get over that. That's what I did have. Did I open those cab windows earlier? This actually does look quite... The cab interior doesn't look too bad for the most part, but to me it just looks very bland and basic when there's no detail on these screens here at all. And I can hear a blasted plane going over again. What's this meant to be? Like this circle. What would actually be there in real life? Obviously there's a brake. I think that's the brake gauge, which is working. I can't imagine Dovetail would have simulated a realistic procedure for changing the power modes. Because I mean, even though there is obviously that dial there that can switch it, I think with the 395s at least, I think the way that works is that you have to put the reverser into neutral, and I think press the CTRL or DC button, and then I think it'll lower the pantograph and then put the third rail shoes down, and then there'll be like a main circuit breaker or MCB lights that'll come on, and you have to I think you have to press the CTRL or DC button again. I can't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure I set up some AI 375s to go past around here. Oh, and there they are. Might as well get a... That's the point. Oh, blast. Oh, you can barely see the 700. It's, I suppose that could still work. This lot's come up from Ramsgate, I think, and that's going to Charing Cross. Speaking of which, speaking of Charing Cross, I'm pretty sure the 700s don't go there in real life. Like the closest they could get, I think normally the closest that Thameslink trains can get to Charing Cross is probably Blackfriars. There's more 375s. Looks like that look like 375 stroke, either 375 stroke 8 or 375 stroke 9 units. Certainly not 375 stroke 7. Now here's something I've just thought of. Considering that this Class 700 add-on only includes like this base Thameslink livery, I wouldn't mind seeing like a reskinner, like I don't know, Klaus, or I think if I'm getting his name right, like Lewis Klaus, I think his name is. He's done like Transport for Wales 158 and a couple of extra reskins for the 395 and 800, etc. I wouldn't mind seeing like a reskinner like him or someone else, like I don't know, even Major Wales Design, doing a reskin for this model where they add the Rainbow and Pride decals that Unit 700 155 carries. Although I don't know if that unit still has them, but I know that she did at one point. Anyway, with just over probably be 30 seconds by the time we stop. We got 30 seconds to spare by the time we've stopped. We're now coming into St Mary Cray. It's curious how all the stations between and including Shortlands and Swanley have the same layouts, where it's like the two island platforms, but on one side it's exclusively for the fast lines, and the other island platform is for the slow lines, and just completely missed that 8-car stop marker. Right, now I think this is the... Okay, how did I get that wrong? And never mind. I dare say if anyone else tried playing this, they'd probably end up passing it with all ticks, which would be ironic. But, well, ironic in the sense that the guy who made the scenario can't even, for some reason, can't even get it right. Ah, there's those 375s coming down the main line, so they'll overtake us before too long. And yeah, also another thing I forgot to mention is that by pressing either the F7 or F8 keys, you can change the destination display in the game. Actually, I think I'll try to do a pretty semi-decent departure, or scene of this thing departing. And I'll get it from this angle so that we can also get the 375s when they come along. Well, that's assuming they'll get here before we have a chance to move. And there's those 375s. I'm going to try and get a screenshot of our Thameslink train being overtaken by Southeastern. I think that'll do. Yes, if you'd like to see if I remember, I'll put a link to a video of me driving a 375 in the top right corner, be it in TSW or Train Simulator. But yeah, it's the Southeastern dark blue livery that you get in TSW, and not the older SE white. What's curious though is that in TSW you only get the 375/9, and this version that we're seeing here, I think the one in front is a 375/8, and yet I've just noticed the second one is a 375/6. I've just seen that pantograph. And actually, come to think of it, I'm not sure why there is a dual voltage variant of the 375 when in real life, as far as I know, the 375s don't run on lines that are electrified with overhead wires. Wait, how are we overtaking the 375s? I would have thought the 375s would be screaming past it and staying at 90. That's the point. I'm pretty sure the 700s, these things can easily do 100 miles an hour. But I think on third rail, the fastest they can go is only about 90. And I've just realised I need to start slowing down pretty soon as we're coming up to Swanley, which is our last station for today. Yes, I might be sounding, for all I know, I'm probably sounding like a broken record at this point, but I really do hope that someone comes along to fix the sounds on this train, be it Armstrong Powerhouse or whoever else. No, it just sounds like Dad's doing the washing again. Of course, I just realised that since we're slowing down to stop at the station, those 375s will come screaming past at any minute. Pretty sure though he won't be stopping here. Although there's another Southeastern train. Those may be Electrostars, but those ones are actually 377s, which is actually kind of fitting because I've just remembered that the 377s that Southeastern use are actually ex-Thameslink. This is a bit awkward, trying to get a scene of the 700 with both the other SE trains in the background. I should add that all the Electrostars that you've seen in this video are from Armstrong Powerhouse's 375 and 377 Enhancement pack. Because I know that I could have used the default 375 that comes with the Chatham Mainline route. But, yeah, I think simply out of personal preference I decided not to. This is actually kind of... I just realised how silly this is to have 377s, or ex-Thameslink 377s alongside the very train that displaced them from their original job. But, yeah, that should just about do it. That should just about do it for today. Yeah, to finish off, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed my coverage of Dovetail Games' new Class 700 add-on for Train Simulator. There's the Electrostar doors closing. But yeah, until next time, thank you very much for watching.